Hey, what's up guys, it's Cypher, and welcome to the long-awaited Stamina Dragonknight build video provided by Acharian. She's the one who designed this build and test played it, and is basically a master at this build. I am still learning this build on my DK, and the reason I'm making this video is I just want to cover the build for you guys, give you guys the skills, the abilities, some ideas about the main aspects of it, and how you can play the build. But what I'm going to do is give you guys the information that I have, and then I'm going to link you guys to a forum post that she made regarding the build. It's a long 2,000 plus word well organized forum post regarding skills, regarding how to play the build, alternatives to skills and gear, and just providing some more footage behind the build and giving you more details so that you can master the build even quicker. So I'm going to give you guys what I know, and then I'm going to link you guys to the forum post so you can go and do more research to become experienced with this build. Let's go straight into it. The first bar is going to be your 2H bar. This is going to be your main DPS bar, while your bow bar is going to be your support bar. The first ability is going to be Wrecking Blow. Now this is a really strong ability, even controversial at times at how strong it could be. But the thing is with this build is you do need a strong single target instant DPS ability. People thought that Whip was going to have a stamina morph, and Whip does not have a stamina morph, so the only other option that you really do have if you want that high burst single target DPS that you used to have with the old Magicka DK, a stamina version would have been Wrecking Blow. You don't want to spam this in outnumbered situations because you are a little vulnerable with the cast times, but if you use it properly, you can have a really strong single target DPS just to pull out whenever you feel like you need it. And you'll see in the footage how Acharian uses it to become really effective at knocking out opponents really quickly and moving on to the next opponents, but without spamming it and becoming vulnerable. Rally is a very strong ability. It's almost mandatory for almost all 2H builds because one, it provides a decent heal over time and burst heal. Second of all, it gives you major brutality, which increases your weapon damage by 20%. This is almost mandatory. It's a great heal and great damage booster. There's nothing else to say about this. Executioner is going to be your execute ability when your opponents are low health. It increases up to 300% based off how low their health is. And also while this is slotted, it gives you a passive bonus, and you deal 18% extra damage to low health targets with two-handed abilities such as Wrecking Blow or Critical Rush. Now Critical Rush is our fourth ability. This is the gap closer, but it's also a great damage dealer because it is increased based off of distance traveled, and it always crits. So if you hit someone from full distance with this ability, I've seen people hit up to 10k or higher depending on how much weapon damage they have and depending on how squishy their target is. But it's definitely a great gap closer, and at the same time it does deal great damage. I'm going to show you guys how Acharian uses this with a bow ability to synergize well and create more distance to get a higher damage output from Critical Rush. Unstable Flame, this is the stamina morph of Unstable, and it is always great to have a very cheap costing, high damage dot on your builds. Almost all my builds do have a cheap cast dot that you can apply onto your opponent, and Acharian did the same thing with her DK and put Unstable Flame. 460 stamina, that's basically free. It's very cheap, does decent damage, and it's just going to be extra, dot that your opponent is going to have to worry about. Your first ultimate is going to be Ferocious Leap. Ferocious Leap. First of all, it's extremely cheap. 119 ultimate. Some people could say, oh, you could put Meteor here. I think this is a lot better because it costs about half the Meteor cost, and it also gives you a damage shield that absorbs up to 88% of your max health, and this lasts for 6 seconds. And usually in an outnumbered situation, if you pop this, you're going to get a huge damage shield mixed with the heal that you get from Battle Roar, and it just basically restarts the fight almost. Extremely useful, extremely good for burst, and can be comboed with a few of the 2H abilities to do great damage, like Ferocious Leap followed by an Executioner or Wrecking Blow into Ferocious Leap. There's a lot of combos that you can do with this, and it's very versatile ultimate. I really like the low cost, high damage, and high sustain that you get from using this ultimate. Second bar is going to be your bow bar. This is going to be your support bar. You do have the Igneous to Green Dragon Blood combo. This is a stamina build, so you're not going to be able to spam this. You got to remember that you can dodge roll for a really long time with stamina, especially with high stamina regen, low stamina cost. You can dodge roll, and that's going to be your main source of avoiding damage. But it's always good to have, a backup, which is the Igneous to Green Dragonblood combo in case you get really low. Green Dragonblood also does give you Major Fortitude and Major Endurance, increasing your health and stamina regen. That's really, really useful, especially for this build, the stamina regen in particular. And then you got Dragonfire Scale, just in case you got a lot of projectiles coming at you. You've already dodge rolled enough, or you can use this offensively, time it against a Crystal Fragment cast or proc, and it's just, even though it only reflects up to 4 projectiles, it's still an extremely powerful ability that I think DK should still be able to use in open world 1v1 and 1vx. Magnum Shot. Now this ability is going to be your disorient, knocking them back 6 meters, knocking you back also. And this is what I was talking about with Critical Rush. If you Magnum Shot someone, you're going to create a large gap between you and your opponent. And then you can go in for the Critical Rush combo, which is going to give you bonus damage. So you're going to see in the footage, Aisha do this a lot, where she Magnum Shots and immediately switch to her 2H, Critical Rushes, maybe switch back to Magnum Shot, and creates even more distance, and then goes in with the 2H and Critical Rushes again. It's extremely useful. It's extremely hard ability to go against because it's fast, you don't see it coming. And when you get disoriented, you have to CC break or take damage, and usually by the time you CC break, you can be back in your opponent's face with a Critical Rush followed by an Executioner or Wrecking Blow. So it's extremely useful ability, and it's extremely versatile. Helps you maintain CC and maintain control over your opponent, their positioning, and your positioning as well. Last ability is going to be Shuffle. This is a morph of evasion from the Medium Armor skill tree. This gives you 20% dodge for 20 seconds, and also it reduces snare. Depending on how much medium armor you're wearing, it's going to be a medium armor. The amount of medium armor we're wearing is 7 out of 7, so it's going to be 3.5 seconds of reduced snares and snare immunity. Now, let me tell you why dodge chance is extremely useful in 1.6 compared to 1.5. Now, in 1.6, of course, you can't go past 20% unless you stack major and minor, but we're only going to be having a major on our bar. But you got to remember that in 1.6, there are so many more abilities that are now dodgeable. There are certain dots that are dodgeable, certain AoEs that are dodgeable. Abilities that you thought weren't dodgeable or blockable are now dodgeable and blockable. So having Shuffle up is going to increase your survivability big time. You're basically going to be reducing majority of the damage you're taking by 20% because of the dodge chance. It's always important to keep this up on yourself. It's going to be a lifesaver in certain situations. And then we have Shifting Standard. Of course, we're going Shifting over Standard of Might, because now that the ultimate is, the ultimate gain has been nerfed, you kind of want to have, 2 opportunities with your standard, and Shifting gives you that because you're able to move your standard around. But most of the time, you're not going to really use Shifting Standard unless for, in very particular, very unique situations will you ever actually use Shifting. Most of the time, you're going to be using Dragon Leap, Ferocious Leap, and Shifting Standard is just the backup. You could have other ultimates here. You can see that. You can see that in the forum post that Acharian made. Now, let me go into the gear slots really quickly. 2 Engine Guardian pieces. This is an extremely powerful Undaunted set. I do not have the helmet on my DK. I'm going to be farming that. I do have the shoulders though, but 2 medium armor Engine Guardian masks. By the way, if you don't have Undaunted sets, do not be afraid. There are other options that you can find on her forum post, and if you go there, you can just click on the spoiler tab that says alternate gear, click on that, and it'll take you and show you different options that you can have. 5-piece White Strakes, reinforced on almost all the pieces, whatever you can get. She still has some impen that she'll probably switch out to reinforced. White Strakes, this is, the reason we're using this ability, this 5-piece set, is with this setup, we're using regen potions instead of stat increase potions. So we're using triple regen instead of triple stat increase. And the reason behind that is sustain is going to be more important for you as a stamina build compared to having higher stats. Magicka builds usually do go for the regen, but I think as a stam build, it's more important. Magicka builds usually go for higher stats, but I think as a stamina build, it's more important for you to have higher regen. Now, the reason we use White Strix is because you're very glassy when it comes to your HP pool. You have a really low HP pool. That doesn't mean you're a glass cannon, because with this build, you're wearing medium, so you have decent spell resist and armor. You're also dodge rolling a lot. You have evasion up. You have reflective scales. You're constantly moving and have great mobility, so you're not particularly squishy. But when you do get hit by that really high-hitting Wrecking Blow or Snipe or Meteor, you want to have the backup, which is if you drop below 30% health, you gain an 8.2k damage shield for 8 seconds, and this effect is on a 15-second cooldown. It's a very short cooldown, so extremely useful and helps you become just a little bit more tanky, and doesn't punish you for having such low health. So that is the 5-piece for White Strix. We got 2-piece Engine Guardian, 5-piece White Strix, and then 4-piece Shadow Walker. We got Shadow Walker pants with the Shadow Walker jewelry. It's V12. The V14 version is really expensive. The V12 version is also kind of expensive, but I think there isn't a huge difference between V12 and V14. So if you can't afford V14, go ahead and just get yourself some V12. There's not a huge difference, and Aecharion is performing really well with just V12. Now, the sword and the bow are both going to be White Strix, because we're wearing only 4 pieces of White Strix on our armor. The top, belt, boots, and gloves. And then the 5th piece is going to be your weapon. So you got White Strix with Sharpened, increased armor and spell penetration, Disease for the health debuff, and then you also got Disease on here with Sharpened to increase your armor and spell penetration. Now let's quickly go into the champion tree. I said this on the Magicka build. It doesn't really matter what your champion's system looks like. I mean, for the most part, you kind of have to build a unique, setup that, fits you properly. But let's just see what Aecharion has. Aecharion has 7 points into the tower for reducing the cost of stamina, spells, and abilities by 3.2%. Increased Magicka regeneration, 5 points to that. Increased stamina recovery, 12 points into that. Stamina recovery is really important with this build. 9 points into reduce the cost of dodge roll and break free. You do dodge roll a lot, and you don't want to lose too much stamina when you're breaking free, so that's a pretty good combo. Now, over here we have 33 points. Increase your physical damage. This is important. This is going to increase almost all your attacks, because everything that you have with this build is physical damage, outside of maybe your standard of might and outside of any reflected projectiles. Increase critical damage of physical attacks, and then increase the amount of armor your physical attacks ignore. These are important for this build. Over here, increase spell resistance, reduce the cost of blocking by 2.2%. You don't block too much with this build, so this might not be necessary. You might be able to put these 3 points somewhere else. You're mainly dodge rolling and evading hits instead of blocking them. And then over here, increase your armor by 2.5%. When a medium armor set of 5 or more pieces is equipped, we're wearing 7 out of 7 medium, so that's a given. Hardy is going to reduce your damage you take from poison, disease, and magic damage. That's important. Elemental Defender is also important. There's a lot of elemental attacks, like the destruction skill line, DKs, sorcerer abilities. There's a lot of elemental attacks that are out there in Citadel, and this is also important to really have. That is about it for the champion tree. I forgot to cover the Mundus Stone and all that, so we'll go into that right now. Basically, like I said, we're not using stat regen. We're not using triple stat buffs. We're using triple regen buffs, and that is going to be increase all your primary stat regen. The actual ability, the actual potion, is right over here, and it's going to increase your health recovery by 315, and then increase your magicka and stamina recovery by 288. You can buy these from guild stores, and there's a lot of crafters out there that can make them, or you can make them yourself. They're extremely useful. Like I said, stamina builds do need sustain over extra stats. And as you can see, 1446 unbuffed stamina recovery. When you activate your Green Dragon Blood, you're going to have 1672 stamina recovery. That's a really high amount of stamina recovery. I've seen people push higher, but this is good enough to sustain with this build. And all your points are going to be going into stamina, so you can have a decent stamina pool. The stats might look bad, only 9.4k magicka and 19k health and 20k stamina, but in reality, with the amount of regen you have and the sustain you get from Undaunted set like Engine Guardian, and then battle roar, from the DK passives, your regen and sustain is going to be extremely high, and you will see that in the video that I will provide after this is over. Thank you guys so much. Oh yeah, forgot to mention werewolf for the extra 15% combat regen. This is a given. If you're not a vampire, you should be a werewolf for the regen. And then the warrior for increased weapon damage. Her weapon damage is sitting at 1576 unbuffed. It gets a 20% buff from rally. So this is the build that Echarian's using. This is the build that I will be using. I will also be using a different variation that is Sword and Board in 2H as well, just to try it out. But this is basically what I'm going to be aiming to master as well. And you'll see videos from Echarian, and you'll eventually see videos of me using this build. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can comment here. Echarian will be reading the comments, and she will go through and reply to the ones. And she can also reply to you on her thread. Don't forget to go check out her thread to get more details on the build to help you master it. The thread will be linked in the description. It's on the Elder Scrolls Online forums, and I will link that for you guys below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to stay tuned because I'm about to show you a clip of this build in action, and I will see you guys soon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.